Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Horn Online Training. I'm Devin Hall, Marketing Coordinator for Horn USA Incorporated. In order to support you during these difficult times, we offer introductory training modules free of charge and with flexible days to attend. We will add and repeat sessions as time progresses to support your understanding of the vast Horn product line. Horn Online Training is designed to be flexible, mobile, and specific, so attend the date you want on the device you want and the specific topics that help you the most. In today's webinar, we will be reviewing the process and benefits of presetting with modular tooling. More topics will be offered in the coming weeks, so look for your exclusive invitation by email from your Horn application and sales engineer or training hosts. Guiding the training today will be Mr. Lee Goad. Mr. Goad has over 18 years of hands-on machining and technical experience with roles including CNC programmer, shift supervisor, and cutting tool application support. Also with us is Mr. Edwin Tunney, Training and Technical Specialist for Horn USA Incorporated.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another session of training. So before we begin and turn it over to Lee, we'd just like to explain a little bit of how to attend this training the most effective way. So you're going to participate in the training in 3 ways. So the Q&A button, you'll find that depending on the device. If you want to ask a technical question, please use the Q&A function. The other way that you can ask questions or interact with us is using the chat. So the chat function would be more or less the admin type questions. When's the next training? Or and those will be monitored by Mr. Devin Hall. So he'll answer those. I will also check those periodically to make sure a question didn't get mistakenly put in there. The Q&A function, we will stop periodically throughout the training to make sure that we gathered and answered all the questions. I think there's a small enough group here that we'll try to field those when we're on the current slide that you may have a question about, but feel free to enter those questions throughout the training. The last step here, we want to get a feel for everybody's comfort with the topic. So I'm going to launch a poll. I'll give you about 30 seconds to answer that. So please answer the poll question that you should be seeing up on your screen. The polls will have just a few. I think there's only 5 questions total throughout the entire training. So we ask that you participate in that. Gives us good feedback to help make training better and to also understand how deep we need to go into the subject. All right, so it looks like 73% know a little bit about presetting. About 19% know it very well. 8% don't know anything. So we'll try to train to that. So right now, I'll turn it over to Lee Goad, and I'll see you in the next Q&A session.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this presentation over W&F presetting, just basics. My name is Lee Goad. I'm a technical specialist with Horn USA. Today's agenda will consist of why presetting, why preset with modular tools, an overview of the WFB and the WF micro systems, and some basic presetting ideas that you can have some in-house solutions to test the theory. Other opportunities we'll discuss at the very end. And Eddie has already covered the questions and comments slides. So what are drivers that cause tool changes? We've just listed 3 basic ideas. One could be the control of the machine. When the machine reaches a certain cycle, runs a certain amount of cycles per tool, it can be set in the machine to alarm out and notify the actual operator to change out the tool. Another one could be surface finish and size. That's typically controlled by the operator. During inspection, he may see some subpar or finishes or not inspect sizes. or non-conforming sizes. And he'll decide to change the tool or flip the insert that's controlling that particular size or finish. Another option that could cause tool changes, tool wear detection systems. The Piezo system is an example of one. With the Piezo system, there is an adapter on the actual tool holder itself in the machine. This adapter is sensing vibration, tool pressure, things that would cause tool wear, or it's just sensing those. Once it reaches a certain limit, it communicates to a smart box, which smart box therefore communicates with the actual control of the machine to notify the operator that a tool change is necessary. So with the cost of without presetting on a tool change, we put together just a little bit of a scenario. And the first amount of data we're going to cover is for one machine with 2 tools, 15 minutes per tool change, 3 times per day. That equals up to 90 minutes per day in machine downtime due to tool changes. At a shop rate of $60 an hour, that's $90 a day lost per machine in a typical tool change on 2 different tools. If we took it a step further, what if you had 4 machines that you were changing out 2 tools per day, 3 times a day? That would be $360 across 4 machines, $7,200 a month across 4 machines in lost downtime just due to tool changes. What about with presetting? Well, maybe you have some WNF micro stick tools already preset, and you're available. And the adapters are available with preset dimensions. A typical tool change from what we perceived would take 2 minutes per tool at 3 times per day. Same numbers as far as how many per machine. That would equal up to 12 minutes a day of machine downtime. At a shop rate of $60 an hour, that would be $12 a day per machine. Again, across 4 machines, $48 a day, $960 a month in just machine downtime lost. So let's look at what you could save by going with a presetting setup across 4 machines. $312 a day, $6,240 a month. And this is just the difference between the 2 slides of without presetting and with presetting of numbers that we put together and we deemed as pretty accurate numbers for tool changes. If you wanted to look at it in time, 5.2 hours a day across 4 machines, 104 hours per month you would gain back in just machine uptime. If you wanted to look at it as 8-hour shifts, that's 13 8-hour shifts a month a customer could gain back by simply going with presetting 2 tools across 4 machines. So we believe there are some pretty distinct advantages with the WFB modular and some presetting advantages. With the modular system, you're only needing to clean 4 surfaces on the adapter, 4 surfaces on the basic tool holder that's in the machine. Versus if you had a stick tool, well, now you're removing the tool out of the machine. You got to clean the wedge clamps, you got to clean the pocket where the tool was sitting. Then you got to clean the actual tool itself, flip the insert, reinstall, and hope you didn't get any metal shavings or dirt in between the tool holder and the locating surfaces inside of the machine. So definitely some pretty clear advantages of the adapter itself by only having to worry about smaller surfaces to keep clean when installing and uninstalling or changing a tool. Modular can reduce risk of injury inside a tight work envelope. Well, typically when you're inside of a Swiss machine, as I have been before, everything's oily. Everything's sharp and ready to cut your knuckles or your fingers. I've got plenty of scars to prove that theory. You're trying to break loose a very tight bolt head off of the wedge clamp to get the actual stick tool out. Then you got to worry about not dropping the tool into the chip bin and having to dig it out. So we believe with only having to break loose 2 threaded taper pins on the adapter instead of having to go through the trouble of breaking loose wedge clamp screws on a regular stick tool, you should see some reduction in busted knuckles, if you will. Also, you're using a torque wrench to break loose the threaded taper pins. So at that point, you're 5 to 6 inches away from any cutting edge in that direct area. The next bullet point, well, we believe modular will help with quicker setups and quicker tool changes when necessary. And by saying that, we mean that as if you had a tool preset in the machine, a base adapter, you are already able to preset the actual adapter outside of the machine, and all you really have to worry about now is breaking loose 2 threaded taper pins, changing the adapter out, and changing your length offset in the offset page. Or maybe you've got a series of base holders set up in the machine, WNFB style or WF micro, and now you've got a whole put together preset tool package waiting at the machine for the next lot of parts or the next changeover. So imagine how quickly a setup could go if you had tools waiting for you and simply changing out a couple screws and a couple length offsets. Also with modular, you can help reduce scrap due to tool change errors. And this all goes back to the presetting. You have known values you're working off of. So basically the main thing you have to worry about is making sure the length offset is correct in the offset page at that point. Versus an integral stick tool, well, you know, you got to make sure everything was clean when installed. You got to make sure you've got the right projection off the gang. You got to make sure that the tool holder is pointing in the right direction. And then hopefully you've set off of the correct diameter. So, you know, pretty clear advantages that we've pointed out. Of course, there are other advantages, but these are some of the basic main advantages that we wanted to show. Quickly, in the previous presentations, we have went over the WFB features, and just quickly, I wanted to point out some of these surfaces here. These are all planned contact areas for the adapters. Anything marked with an X are ground, and the opposing or the contacting areas in the base holders are also ground. So this helps with a secure, snug fit and exact alignment when the adapter is seated completely in the basic tool holder. Another thing I wanted to point out is with the fixation screws, there's two threaded taper pin bores per adapter, and the threaded taper pins are actually in the base holders themselves. But nevertheless, the screws are torqued at a 4 to 10 Newton meter torque value, and that will be recommended specific to the actual size of the adapters. We have through coolant holes for most WFB adapters. And with the ground surfaces on both the basic tool holder and the adapter itself, you should see high repeatability when changing an adapter in and out of the basic tool holder. We just kind of wanted to show you a little bit how the process of seating an adapter would be in a basic holder. This area is something I would like to point out. In the face contact area is slightly concave, and that'll become more important when the adapter is seated fully against the basic tool holder. As you can see, the deeper the adapter goes into the basic tool holder, the more prominent the guide surfaces become for final alignment and proper seatment of the adapter itself. Once the adapter is seated up against the face contact areas of the holder and the adapter, you'll therefore torque the threaded taper pins at the recommended value, And at that point, the concave face will actually start to flatten out, causing a nice positive locking style clamp. Also, it's great for exacting and repeatability on the length offset side. With this, so we've put together a little bit of some presetting ideas, and we wanted to cover with the WFB first. We just gave a simple idea of an ER collet holding any given drill or small end mill, a static holder, a height gauge, a surface plate, and an in-house made tool block. Most customers have round stock laying around to where they could turn and grind these surfaces parallel and flat. And then they should be able to bore a perpendicular bore to the parallel surfaces to the static holder's desired diameter, be able to clamp it inside this block with a simple set screw. And from that point, now you're ready to do some presetting. You would set the actual, before installing the adapter, you would actually touch off and zero out on the contact surface area. Then you would install your adapter to the recommended torque values into this base holder. Take a measurement off the top of the tool. And now you have a known value that would translate to the machine if you set the tool holder in the machine off of the contact surface area, face area. Another example would be using a V-block. Most machine shops have machine shops have a V-block, have a height gauge, have a surface plate available. You could simply test the theory by clamping the static holder into your V-block, taking similar measurements off the face contact area, measure off the top of the tool. Then you're ready to have numbers that can translate to the machine in their length offset, as long as the base holder is set up in the machine. For those that have a Zoller, well, W&F has options. They've partnered with Zoller. W&F provides the top end piece, as you can see in black there, or dark gray. This piece is compatible with the WFB system, and Zoller provides the back end that's compatible with their machine. They have locating slots and everything needed to plug directly into the Zoller. We've provided per size of WFB adapter. We've provided the actual part number that will coincide with their particular back end per machine. And that's for your convenience. If you are interested in these are only available, these style adapters are only available through Zoller. So we recommend that you contact Zoller for pricing or availability of these style adapters if you were to look into presetting the WFB system. For other presetters out there, basic presetters with, let's just say, an SK50 back end, well, W&F does offer an integral style that's fully ground, and it will be with the WFB compatible top end. So there are options outside of the Zoller system for presetters if it's just a typical SK50 or HSK style back end. So we've put together what maybe a potential preset tool package may look like. Horn doesn't offer any kind of preset or any kind of adapter packages, and that's due to the different applications that are out there. It would require different style tool holders. But per se, the customer needs these tools for a particular application. Well, they've already got their base holders set up in the machine, and this tool package could be sitting and waiting while the other lot of parts are being run, and you're ready to change over. You could have a box ready full and preset with known values of an ID groover, ID profiling insert, ID groove milling, any kind of tool that would fit in a hydraulic holder. So we believe you could definitely save time with having preset tool packages put together, waiting at the machines when the lots are done. So this is an interesting slide, and we decided to put together a return on investment. What you may see as far as if you were to have a preset tool package across 4 machines with 2 setup holders, and you would need 8 base holders for the 4 machines, 1 adapter outside of the machine for presetting. You would need 8 adapters in the machine and 8 adapters outside of the machine. We believe that would cost approximately $9,800. You would save with presetting the 2 tools with 3 tool changes per day. You would save approximately $312 a day in just machine initial uptime. We believe it would take 6.3 weeks to see a return on your investment. And with the return on investment, we mean you would see an actual return on just machine uptime. We're not even talking about expendable tools here. We're talking about these tool holders would be paid for, and you would have them for other jobs also. So where did we get our numbers? If you can remember in slide 4 how we figured our numbers, you know, the 312 a day and time saved with presetting versus without presetting. And one more glimpse again at the return on investment, so everything kind of is put together. Okay, so now we're going to do a live demonstration. And all I'm going to do again, I know we did this in the previous shows, but we're just going to go over the WFB adapter and tool holder basics again, just so you can see them and kind of put together the ground surfaces, and hopefully it will help you understand a little bit more on why presetting is possible with the WFB adapters. Thank you for bearing with me. I had to do a quick screen change, but right here we have a just a basic round shank WFB 2012 compatible tool holder. Some of the features for this are, let's see if I can get her to zoom properly. Some of the actual features for this are a through hole, if you can see the hole through the middle. Any of the contact areas are, thank you, Devin. Any of the contact areas, like the surface contact area, is ground. You can see the guide surface is ground. The 2 threaded taper pins. 4 clamping flats. And these clamping flats will actually help you to, let's just say you needed to position the threaded taper pins a certain way. You've got options to help put the threaded taper pins in an optimal position for when you do change adapters. Also keep in mind that this style adapter would plug into a standard lathe if you had, per se, like a 114 or a 105 face grooving operation that you wanted to include into just a typical lathe. Another thing I wanted to cover, of course, the adapters themselves. Again, you can see the through bore. This is a 3mm style shrink fit adapter. As you can see, all of these surfaces are ground. There's the 2 threaded taper pin bores. And when the threaded taper pin clamps, it actually pulls back on this area, pulling the adapter into the basic holder. Everything's a nice fit. You know, you would snug these 2 threaded taper pins down, as we covered in previous presentations. Then you would break them loose once again, and then you would do your final torquing for proper seatment. The WFB 20-12, I can tell you, is 4 Newton meters, so very low torque values actually have produced proper seatment. Another adapter would be an ER style collet. as you can see, a through bore for through coolant. All the planned contact areas are ground. Again, real easy to install. You torque the 2 threaded taper pins down, you're ready to go. One last thing, we believe you should be able to, even with live tools preset, because these are planned ground, planned contact areas. You know, easy to rotate for the 2 different threaded taper pins. This is for an L20. Let me get it turned the right way. This is for an L20 Citizen. WNF has partnered with Citizen to get the proper gear information, proper bolt hole information, proper flange width. This way you can stack several tools together without any interruptions or any kind of having to skip pockets. So definitely lots of good advantages to the WFB system. Definitely, in my opinion, are made for presetting. We will get everything fixed up here. But so, you know, at this point in the show, we're going to take a brief break, and we're going to hopefully there are some questions, and we will cover the questions as needed. Eddie, are there any questions so far?
I do not see any questions. So we'll, but what I do want to do is launch a poll. So while that poll is being launched, we'll see if any materialize. So if you can, about 30 seconds, answer the questions that should be up on your screen. All right, looks like most of you are more comfortable with and a little more confident if you've never seen this product before to apply it at your customer. Thank you for answering those. All right, back to you, Lee. We'll see if any questions develop for the next final Q&A session.
Okay, I just wanted to briefly say thank you for continuing to stay with us, and please feel free to ask questions. It's not a big deal. We definitely like to answer any questions. That way you feel more confident with the product, and actually it helps us to learn the product a little bit better as to what may need to be presented a little bit more in depth to our customer base. So we're going to discuss a little bit about the WFMS Micro, just a brief overview. Of course, we've covered these previously in other presentations. Some of the features were the ground surfaces for planned contact, both in the basic holder and the adapter itself. The threaded taper pin, you only have one on the Micro system. And these are typically torqued at 4 Newton meters. You have an alignment pin for helping with anti-torsional, fight torsional forces that during machining process. The L1, the F1, and the H1 are all stated in the catalog. So imagine sitting there programming and you've got your machine envelope drawn up and you needed to know what the projection of the actual adapter itself is off the base holder. That'll help you set up the tools and tell the operator how much projection off the game he needs. Well, you can simply look in the catalog and you have the L1 value to the end of a given insert. That should be within thousandths of an inch of what you actually would measure. It's definitely a nice advantage, I believe, in just preconception of a process or an application. The F1 and the H1's the center height, so you know the center height of the tool. And, you know, most of these adapters are through coolant capable. As you can see, the bore, there'd be a bore here, and then an exacting placed through coolant hole for putting optimal coolant at the right spot when cutting. Some of the advantages for the micro tool are pretty much the same as WFB system. So we won't spend a lot of time, but just briefly covering. Again, with dealing with dirt and contamination or contaminants when changing tools, you should see a decrease in issues with that due to you're only cleaning, you know, 3 surfaces on the adapter and 3 surfaces on the base holder. Reduce risk of injury should be available because you're only breaking loose 1 threaded taper pin, typically at 4 Newton meters, versus having to remove a whole tool out of a tight work envelope. You could have these preset in the machine, measured off the contact surface in the machine. You could be presetting outside of the machine, putting together packages that would help with presetting, would help with changeovers and tool changes. You should see a reduction in scrap due to tool changes, basically because you have known values that you're working off of and you're already preset, you're ready to go. You're not having to worry about projection off the gang. Did you set the tool in the right direction? So we believe, you know, there's some pretty clear advantages even with the micro itself. Just another example of the presetting operation that could be simply and quickly assembled at a customer's to test the theory. The V-block would definitely need to be a 90-degree included V-block, which most machinists or most customers have one in their shop. Surface plate again, height gauge, a basic square holder, static holder for the micro, clamped in the V-block. You can measure off of the contact surface area, install the adapter at the recommended torque, measure to the top of the tool. Now you have a length offset that can communicate to the machine if you've set the machine up off of this surface face contact area in the machine. So what kind of return investment would you see? Well, again, this is 4 machines, 2 tool holders in each machine. You would need 9 basic adapters or basic tool holders, 8 in the machine, 1 outside of the machine for presetting, 8 adapters in the machine, 8 adapters outside of the machine for presetting. $7,800 is what it would approximately cost to totally tool up 4 machines, or to tool up 2 tools per 4 machine. We believe you'd see $312 a day in return machine uptime. It would take approximately 5 weeks to see a return on your investment. And where did we get the numbers from? Well, again, if you can remember in slide 4, this was just basically the difference of with presetting and without presetting across 4 machines. Uh-oh, we have hit some technical difficulties. I apologize. Let me get to the proper slide. It may be kind of a blur, so if you deal with any kind of flashing light issues or anything, please just bear with me. My slide didn't zoom properly. But nevertheless, we're back to the presetting. I wanted to just bring you back to this slide for the return on investment so you can see what we would see back in time gained on the machine. Okay, so we're going to take a quick brief break and do a live demonstration. Bear with me as I change my screen share. And we will go to my secondary camera, and basically all we're going to do is have a micro tool holder and just kind of show some of the features and what we believe are benefits. Just a basic turning adapter, you know, ISO style. With the adapter, you can see the ground surfaces, base contact, ground surface area. The O-ring itself is to help with pushing the adapter after the adapter's been installed. It's to actually help push the adapter off when you loosen the threaded taper pin. There's the threaded taper bore, and they do offer two, so you could actually, depending on the location in the machine, you could actually flip the insert to be facing down or have it facing up, depending on your application needs or location of the tool holder. The tool holder itself, as you can see, the contact or locating areas that control center height and control location of the actual adapter itself are all ground. There's one threaded taper pin. If you can see in there, hopefully with the lighting will let you, but all of the planned contact areas are ground. The slot's been pre-machined to a pretty tight tolerance for exacting alignment on the actual adapter itself to help with cutting edge position alignment and anti-torsional forces. But, you know, real simple, nice and easy to use system, easy to change out. Some of the things else I would like to point out on the adapter itself is with the through bore, you can blow coolant through this hole for through coolant operation. And the coolant would actually be aimed to hit the optimal position of where the cutting action is taking place. With the one last thing, with the square static holder, there are two spots for coolant port adapting. So pretty simple, pretty easy setup. With this, we're going to take a brief break, and I'm going to turn it over to Eddie to see if there are any questions. Eddie, are there any questions?
We have a couple. I kind of answered those privately to the people, but just for the benefit of everybody in the training. So are there downloadable, emailable flyers about WNF other than the downloadable catalog? And so my answer, I think is correct, is no. So the catalog is kind of the reference document, and really the best one for the most up-to-date information on WNF product. Second question was, is the presentation available for download? So I can also, I can field that. I will take that action to send the PDFs to anybody who just hit the chat and say, can you send me a copy of the PDF copy of the presentation if you want it? Okay, so that's all the questions so far. No more open ones, so I'll give it back to you, Lee.
Again, we just want to thank you for the questions. They definitely are valuable. You may have answered a question that somebody had in the back of their mind and just didn't feel like asking. So thank you, and we do welcome more questions.
All right,
oh, okay, what we got?
Sorry, one more. Oh, just a comment. Thank you.
Oh, okay. 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 Well, are there any other advantages with our WNF offering? Other opportunities, if you will? Well, we believe that there are. WNF has actually put together a gang plate style that's machine specific to the machine model and the builder. This is just a prime example. 5 tool slots for square holders. One would be a 16 millimeter in this case, and the other 4 will be 12 millimeter square shanks. The beauty of this is you're not just married to having to use W&F static holders. You can actually use your in-house integral holders that are 12 mil and 16 mil shanks to plug into this actual gang plate. But let's say if you had the W&F static holder, well, now you can plug the holder in, bump up against these adjustable coolant stops. The basic adapter stays in the machine at the proper stick out off the gang. Now you're presetting because you're touching off the surface of the basic tool holder, and you can measure your tools out, your adapters outside the machine. So now you're back to being able to save a lot of time during changeovers and tool changes. If you had the integral holder, well, you could actually sit these adjustable coolant stops and use them as a hard stop to help you get really close to your last setting point of the actual integral holder. I would still suggest touching the actual tool holder off every time you remove it, but it would be a really nice advantage to be somewhere within the same range as your previous holder that you had in the gang itself. The clamping wedge screws, I believe they're only 5 Newton meters, creates enough force where you won't be able to pull the tool holder out itself. Another feature, you have on and off valves or turning knobs for coolant flow. If you have a nice sensitive touch, you may be able to adjust the coolant flow, but these are typically designed for either on or off for through coolant. There are 4 options for coolant adapters to plug in. And as stated before, everything has been communicated with the machine manufacturer and W&F as far as making sure the actual gang plate will plug into your particular machine. Well, you say, well, that looks expensive. What would be return on investment with this? What we did, we put together one machine with one gang plate purchased, 5 setup holders in the machine. And because there are 2 different micro sizes, you would have to have a 12 millimeter one and a 16 millimeter base adapter outside the machine if you were to preset all of the compatible slots. You would have 10 adapters, 5 in the machine, 5 outside the machine for presetting. We believe it would cost approximately $9,000 to get set up totally. With that, you're looking at $195 a day saved with presetting. And we did similar numbers as before with, without and with presetting on the stick tools, as far as, 2 minutes per tool on a WF preset modular adapter and 15 minutes on a regular integral stick tool. We believe it'll take 9.2 weeks to see return on your investment in just initial machine uptime. And just a brief view of the numbers. Oh, do we have questions?
Yes, a couple of questions just came in, and
Okay.
while we're on the slide is good.
Okay.
Any idea about the resolution when adjusting the coolant stops? So the coolant stops just pull in and out. So those infinitely adjustable.
Yes. Those are they're not, you can't turn something and push them out like 10 thousandths per click. They're more infinitely and custom style adjustable as far as the coolant stops. But once the set screw is clamped down on the coolant stop, you do have a nice solid stop to bump up against.
Okay. Next question is what is the recommendation of the plate after a crash? they've been asked that question before. So if you crash this tool gang, is it need realignment or replacement of the actual base plate, or can it be just realigned?
Well, a little bit of that, in my opinion, is how severe it got crashed. You know, are we saying maybe you melted one of the adapters off the end of the tool and the gang plate maybe didn't get touched, but there was a lot of extra torque? What I would recommend is just running an indicator up and down the actual, let me get my pointer going again, guys. Hold on a second. My recommendation would just to be making sure I'm square with the machine as far as the pockets go. And if it doesn't seem like any damage has been done to the plate, I would just go ahead and give it a try. Another thing I would want to make mention is a lot of these adapters actually have, or these gang plates actually are pin aligned, and they're bolted by like 4 bolts minimum most of the time. So they're seated very nicely and very solid in the machine. Do we hopefully that was a fair enough answer. Do we have any other questions, Eddie?
One more.
Okay.
So how many coolant lines are required to get coolant to the entire tooling block? So how many input lines or coolant lines do you need to get to the entire coolant block?
Okay, so bear with me. I'm going to go back a slide. I hate to jump around so much, but this is good for a visual. And I'll cover that in the live demonstration again, just so you can see. These 2 connections control basically 1/2 of the block from my understanding. If you were to move them up to this portion, well, this one controls a few of these, and this one controls a few of these coolant tubes. So per se, you wanted to shut half the block off, or you could simply keep it plumbed if you wanted and just turn them off with the on and off valves for coolant flow, or you could simply just plug the hole and turn the valves off, and now you won't have coolant flowing through potentially these 2. So how are we looking on questions?
All right, I think that's all the questions for right now, and we'll gather some more at the end. So please, we'd like to see this, and we'd like to see the interaction. So
Yes.
if you have more questions, we'll tackle those between now and the end of the presentation.
Okay, thank you for your questions, guys. So we've moved on to my secondary camera. I kind of took advantage of while questions were being answered, and you know, the just took advantage of actually just getting everything set up. But so just a prime example of one of our gang plates. This is for a Citizen style machine, and we've got part numbers particular per machine. I do have a working list of these in case you have a machine in mind. As I was speaking earlier, you know, you have, let me see if I can get a good view. You've got 2 locating pins. You've got 3 bolt holes that bolt through the top that will actually seat this actual gang plate in the proper place, and in my opinion make it a little bit more robust and more heavy duty to withstand per se a minor hit or minor crash, if you will. I'm not saying it'll withstand, you know, melting all of the tools, but maybe if you just chipped a tool or something, or hit it kind of hard, it may withstand that kind of hit. So the coolant port options. Right here's 2 coolant port options, more coolant port options. Oops, let me get it more centered. You could move the plugs around and move the adapters where needed, where it's convenient for you to plumb coolant through the tool hole, through the actual gang plate. The knobs here, these are the through coolant on and off valves. It's be kind of hard to see, but there's 6 screws per coolant tube, adjustable coolant tube / stop, that allows you to basically loosen the set screw, and you can move the actual coolant tube in, or they're pretty stiff, but in or out. Lock it down, by a simple twist. You can't move that now. I mean, you've got a nice solid stop to bump up against. This is a micro square style holder, of course, with the adapter included. But, per se, you wanted a cutoff tool in your big pocket. Well, just as easy as installing. Torque this down to the 4 Newton meters. Now you've got a through coolant option already plumbed by the back side of the tool. These wedge clamp screws, I believe they're somewhere around 5 to 8 Newton meters. I'll have to double check that to give you an actual real value. But these wedge clamp screws are easy to break loose, remove your tool if you needed. On the back side of the actual micro adapters, as you can see, we got an HSK style tube that actually screws in and plumbs the coolant through coolant by actually installing into the adjustable adapter. Easy as that. Small torque value. Wedge clamp screws are seated, nice positive lock. You're pushing against a known surface, and you're ready to roll again. So, per se, you just preset off the end of the adapter itself, of basic holder itself. Well, now you could, if you needed to, you could actually, let's say you just wanted to put an ISO style turning adapter in. Now you're ready to go. All you have is a known value that you preset outside of the machine. That's how quick a tool change can be with one of these. So lots of good options. Eddie, are there questions? This may have got some questions going.
Yes, Lee, you have one question. Does WNF plan to make tooling and a block for a Tornos Nanos?
That's a good question, and let me do a little bit of investigating and see what's available, and I will get back with you specifically to give you an idea. We could offer a made to order if we have the proper machine information, though. Uh-oh, I was on mute. So, did any of that pick up through your mic, Eddie?
So the short answer, sorry, we're trying to be polite to each other, and because we're in the same little studio room here, and so the short answer to that is Lee will check on that
Yes.
to see if there is a Tornos Nanos in the works or already existing. All right, back to you, Lee. Turn your mic on.
Yeah, as you can tell, this is a truly high-end production. So, we only strive for the best. So let me get back to my presentation. So, with the live demonstration, I'm definitely thankful for the questions, and hopefully, everything's been covered as far as giving you more of a comfort level with WFB and WFM micro and some presetting ideas that you may see applicable at a customer. You know, with what we've covered, I'm going to ask one last time, are there any questions?
I don't see any questions, Lee, but we will let me launch the final poll, and maybe in the time frame that that's launched, we'll see some pop in. There's usually some shy people that don't ask until the very end. So, all right. So how was the duration? So I'll give you about 20, 30 seconds to answer that. All right, looks like so just right, most of too long, maybe about 10%. So we can kind of split the difference. Thank you for your input. So I don't see any more questions, Lee. So I'm gonna sign off and give it back to Devin. But I will say, please just any kind of additional questions about this product or any other products in the WNF system. Or the Horn products in general, please send the questions to technical@Horn USA or product training@Horn USA, and we'll be happy to help you get those answered. So I'll send it back to Lee to sign off. And
all right, thank you guys. Hopefully this was informational, and we do appreciate your attendance. We do appreciate questions. It helps us to know what needs to be presented in further depth. Again, thank you. And I believe I'm going to hand this off to Mr. Devin Hall.
All right, well, this concludes today's training. Please check your inbox for invitations to the next training modules. If you have further questions or comments, please send an email to producttraining@hornusa.com or technical@hornusa.com. Again, thanks for joining us and have a good day.